Chapter 14. Dylan sat in stunned amazement. Maybe he'd been looking for the wrong thing. He'd been looking for ways to prove the stories wrong. He'd been looking for ways to prove it couldn't be true, that Nellie couldn't exist. But maybe he'd been wasting his time. Maybe he had been looking for the wrong thing the entire time. He couldn't ask anything. He couldn't think of anything to ask. And for a long while, the two of them just sat looking at the water. They might have sat there all day if the wind hadn't picked up. Grandpa stood and looked at the sky to the west. "Looks like it's going to rain again," he said. "We should probably start heading back." Probably, but Dylan didn't want to go. He wanted to hear the story again. He wanted to hear more about Billy. "Grandpa," he said as the old man started back toward the canoe, "how come I never read anything about you hooking Nellie?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, in all those stories and all those newspapers, I never came across anything about you getting so close to catching her," he said. "Why didn't they write a story about you?" Grandpa looked back at the sky and then back to Dylan. "Because I never told anybody." "Why not?" Dylan asked. He was dumbfounded. Here was the closest thing to proof anyone had since Mad Cat Holly, and he didn't tell anybody? It wasn't their story to tell. Had I landed her, had I gotten proof, it would have been for Billy. Then I would have told his story. But almost is just another fishing story, just another old man who almost caught the fish of a lifetime. "What about Grandma? What did you tell her?" "I told her I cut my arm with a fishing lure, but nothing more. No sense bringing it home. You're the only person I've told, and I only told you because you seemed so interested." Dylan took a seat at the front of the boat. They pushed off from the small island. The wind was picking up fast, and dark clouds were coming in over the trees. They weren't quite back to the launch when he looked back behind his grandfather and saw a wall of rain falling like a curtain into the lake. It caught up to them just as they made it back to the launch, and the boat was almost instantly filled with several inches of water. "Let's just pull it on shore," Grandpa yelled over the din of the wind and rain. "We'll head home and come back and get the boat when the weather's cleared." Dylan did as he was instructed and jumped into the front of the old truck, life jacket and all, and they slowly made their way back to the house in the driving storm without talking, without saying a word. That's when Dylan decided what he had to do.